All right, we've completed almost everything for this project. The only thing missing is the part where we actually write the HTML to the page. Let's look at the HTML structure for one image. As you can see, it's a list item. It has a link, and inside the link is an image tag pointing to a graphic on Flickr. Let's start by creating a variable named photo.html. It will hold all of the HTML for the photos, the unordered list, the list items, the links, and image tags. We'll build up that HTML one bit at a time, and when we're done, we can add the entire chunk of HTML to the page. Now we need to add photos to this unordered list. You can see in the example HTML that each image is represented by an li tag. Inside that is a link, which points to a Flickr page for the photo, and a thumbnail image which points to a small image on Flickr. So we need to go through each photo returned by the Flickr feed to create individual list items. Now that sounds like a loop, and jQuery provides a handy utility function for easily looping through an array. The jQuery method is called $.each, and its basic structure looks like this. The $.each method takes two arguments. The first is an array, and the second is a callback function. This method loops through each item in an array and applies the callback function to it. The $.each method gives the callback function two pieces of information, or two arguments. The first is the index value of the array item, and the second is the actual item in the array. Remember, this is a loop. Those two arguments change as the $.each method works its way through each item in the array. Let's look at an example of how this works. Imagine we have a variable named fruit. It holds an array of fruit names. You can use the $.each method to loop through that array and act on each item. You don't need jQuery for this. You could accomplish the same thing using a standard JavaScript for loop like this. jQuery just lets you write simpler code. Let's use the $.each method to loop through each of the photos from the Flickr feed. But what do we need to access here? Let's look at an example of the Flickr feed again. There's a property here named items. As you can see, it's an array of photo information, one array item for each photo. So how do we access that array? Remember that the data returned from Flickr is given to our AJAX callback. We've stored that in a variable named data. So data holds JSON data. It's actually really JavaScript at this point, thanks to jQuery, which parsed the JSON string returned by Flickr. So data is a JavaScript object. To access a property of that object, we need to use dot syntax. So data.items holds the entire array of photos. We can pass that into the $.each method. Let's work on the callback function for $.each. This method passes two arguments to the callback. First is the index value. I'll just call it I here. The second is one item from the array. I'll change the name to photo since each array item is the data describing one photo from the Flickr feed. Now we just need to build up the HTML for each photo. An HTML list item, a link, and an image. First, the opening li tag. Notice that I've added the classes that my designer specified in his mockup design. Next is the link to the Flickr page for the image. Here's a link, but what URL do we use for the href attribute? Let's look at the feed again to see what the URL is. Here you see each item in the items array is itself a JavaScript object, made of property names and values. The property name for the link is link. Remember that inside the $.each callback function, we gave an array item the variable name photo. So to get the link stored in that object, we use dot syntax again, photo.link. We have to use string concatenation to do this. We add a literal string to the value of the property in the object, and then we add that to another literal string. Now, inside the link, we'll add an image, close the A tag, and close the LI tag. Again, we have to figure out what we're going to use for the source property. Let's go back to Flickr and check it out. Okay, as you can see, there's an object here named media, and the value of it is another object. So photo.media.im will contain the path to the thumbnail image file. We have to concatenate this string as well. So each time through the loop, we keep adding onto this variable photo.html. It will keep getting longer with more and more list items added until we've looped through the entire list of photos. Now outside the loop, after we're done building the list of photos, we can close the UL tag. And the last thing is to add this string to the HTML of our page. That's it. Let's save these files and check it out. Cool, it works.